All right, I'm Brandon Hetzler with Movement Restoration, and we're filming here live, not really live, but we're filming from our studio here in Southwest Missouri, and by studio I mean just the most recent place I've found to set up all of our stuff, get our slide up here, and no one will chase me away. So if I have to cut real quick and run, it's because somebody found me in the corner of this classroom. What we're going to get into today real quick in this first video is how we go about fixing the active straight leg raise. If you don't know what ASLR means over here, then what you need to do is go to functionalmovement.com so that you can get more information on the FMS. Got to have that terminology and that operating procedure if you're going to understand really anything we're going to talk about from here. We're not going to talk about the why on the philosophy and the logic behind this. This is just a video to show you the how and the exercises that we are currently doing. This is a starting point. It's not an end-all be-all recipe. And if you talk to me in a week, a month, a couple hours, this list of exercises will probably change, because when it comes to corrective exercise, the exercise you choose is the least important part. The important part is the why. So what we're going to get into first is we're just going to go down this, and that way you can see what each exercise is and kind of what we're looking for with each one. Lizard series mobility drills. There's a ton of these, but what we're talking about here, we need to split the pelvis. One leg's in flexion, one hip's in flexion, other hip's in extension. We can use our hands to provide a little bit of support, and then what we're looking for, nice neutral spine, trying to get as tall as we can, and then we're just working into that hip flexion, hip extension on this down leg, hip flexion on the up leg. Just like if we were squatting or deadlifting or anything else, we want good mechanics of this forward leg, so foot flat, knee tracking with the toe, heel down on the ground, and we want to maintain that arch here. And what we're doing here is we're just going to work through some hip extension. Now, we're not going to go through the whole lizard series because that could be a video in and of itself. But we have what we call lazy lizard, which is where my back knee's on the ground, and we actually have the lizard series where we're going to do this. We're going to maintain our hips right where they are, but we're going to lift that back knee an inch up off the ground. We can work in and out of it. We can work some side-to-side stuff. We can focus on some breathing, because if we can keep a nice extended hip here, some nice diaphragmatic breaths from the belly, not from the chest, even better. We want to be able to do it with our head flexed, neck extended, looking to one side, looking to the other side, some lateral flexion each way. Really shouldn't affect and cause any movement once we start to move that head. Next one up on the board is the wall active straight leg raise series. So for this one, got to have a wall. If you don't have a wall, you can find a person to take its place. But what we're looking for here, feet together, knees extended, feet up on the wall. I want the hips to be as close as we can get with that lumbar spine staying flat. So if we can get all the way to the wall, that's great. If we have to start a little bit further away from the wall, that's also fine. We need to just work it to where we're at the edge of that individual's ability. And so what we're going to do, first thing we're going to do here, we're going to get them as close to the wall as we can, sacrum flat, and we're just going to focus on some diaphragmatic breathing. We want to be able to be in this position comfortably. Once we can do that, same thing, we're going to work on some head positions. We're going to turn to the right, turn to the left. Don't necessarily want to go into flexion here unless I can prop my head up, because I want this to be, I want to take as much tension off the table as possible with this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start to sneak in some different perturbations. And all we're going to initially do is just some lifting off the wall. And we can alternate, and we're going to complete a full breath cycle every time we lift off the wall. Then we can start adding in some small circles each way, hip internal external rotation, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion. We can make figure eights. We can make sideways figure eights. But all the time we're looking at knee extension here. So this leg we're getting a perturbation, but with this heel I'm pushing down into the wall. And I don't really want a whole lot of movement in that leg that's up on the wall. So we have several different things we can do here. You can be as creative as you want But the important part is that we're getting a perturbation on one side, not sacrificing the integrity of the knee, and we're getting pushing down on the other side. Same thing, not on a flexed knee and with that sacrum flat on the ground. Third one that's up on the board is the long half kneeling stability series, and that's what SS stands for. So we've all probably seen half kneeling, a collection of 90s, and that's good. But if we're targeting the active straight leg raise, and look at what's going on with the active straight leg raise, half kneeling is going to give us a little bit, but it's not going to give us everything. So what we want to go with is what we call long half kneeling. And long half kneeling, if you're ready for if you better pay attention, because this is going to get pretty deep really quick. For it to be long half kneeling, we're going to do this. Pay close attention, it happens quick. Straighten that knee out, foot stays pointed towards the ceiling. We're not going to turn out, we're not going to sacrifice anything. We still want everything on train tracks, but now we want that knee extension. Now, I'm on an Eric's pad just because this floor is uncomfortable, but we don't want a lot of cushion down here. So a mat works good, some soft carpet either or. We just want to make sure that's comfortable for the individual. Back foot, plantar flex is a good starting point. Dorsiflex makes it a little bit more challenging. We want to make sure we have full hip extension. We want to go for full hip extension on this down knee, so we don't want anything like this. Same thing here, and with that back leg, we want to make sure it's on train tracks as well. So not internally, externally rotated, or internally rotated, externally rotated. What we're going to do here, we're just going to focus first on diaphragmatic breathing through the belly. We're going to be able to go into cervical flexion, cervical extension, looking over the right, looking over the left, side bend right, side bend left. If I'm not talking my way through these, if I'm having somebody do this, I'm actually completing a full breath cycle for each one. Then we can get in and we can start playing with this front leg, some internal external rotation, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, which is going to give us a little bit of some weight shifts, hip internal external rotation. So we have lots of options in what we can do with this. But we're going to go through breathing, some head control, staying tall, we're pushing down, and then we can get into some perturbations. We can then move into a little bit of disassociation if we'd like to. We can go back to perturbations and we can start doing some stuff overhead. The important part is we go through that whole stabilization sequence. Long standing stabilization sequence. Okay, see if you can figure out what long standing is. We're now in standing. You ready? Not asymmetrical stance, but asymmetrical stance where this front leg is really just a kickstand. We've got a little bit of splitting of the pelvis going on here. If we wanted to, we could have something out in front of us to give us a little bit more hip flexion if we wanted. Key is we have lots of options with this. But if you notice, what I'm going for is I want most of my weight here and a little bit of just, again, flexion on this side. And then we're going to go through the same thing. Just be able to breathe here. Cervical flexion, cervical extension, rotation, side bending. And once we get into some of that side bending, lateral and rotation, really changes the sensory experience of this whole thing. We can lighten this front leg, work on all those same patterns that we did before to get into any of, just to continue that stabilization sequence. And the last one, push up to single leg deadlift progression. Single leg deadlifts are wonderful. How people do single leg deadlifts aren't. I'd say 90% of the single leg deadlifts I do, that's calling them a single leg deadlift is bad for what real single leg deadlifts are. So how we teach single leg deadlifts is actually backwards. We teach it from the ground. We establish a good start position. Hopefully we have a good finish position when we're standing up, and then we connect the dots. So push up to single leg deadlift progression. Do it on kettlebells. We can also do it on boxes. Just getting into this, probably the boxes is a better idea, but I have kettlebells. So we're going to go with kettlebells. But like I said, just getting somebody into this, we can use boxes, and we can adjust the box height to the height that they need. So what we're going to do, we're going to get into the top of a push-up position. And we want everything to be locked in. So full hip extension, quads contracted, glutes contracted, abs nice and braced. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move from here into our single leg deadlift stance. So we're going to come up to here. Now you notice here, my weight is still split between my two legs. So what I'm going to have to do, first off, is back up just a little bit. Technical difficulties. I'm going to back up a little bit so I stay in the frame. But what we're going to do, we're going to go from this push-up position to the bottom of our deadlift position. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift my weight forward, maintain that back position, unload my back leg, and then stand up. Now, I can obviously do that with the kettlebells as we get to that. But then to reverse it, what I'm going to do is I'm just reaching back, maintaining good deadlift postures here until I find this, find the bells or find the boxes, go shift back into my push-up position, and do the same thing on the other side. Shift forward, lift that back leg, and stand up. So again, bring the ground up to them. If we need to, if that's too far, if we need to, I have stools, not boxes, but we can do the same thing here. We can get into the top of that push-up position. We can establish our bottom of our deadlift position, shift forward, unload that back leg, and then stand up. So it's whatever we need to do to get the ground up to them. Wouldn't recommend going straight to the stools just because they had more wiggly parts, but it's what I had access to. Boxes work great. Taller kettlebells work great. And that's generally the sequence we go through to lead us into fixing the active straight leg raise. Start on the ground, work through the different postures that tie into the active straight leg raise, end up on our feet. So thanks for watching. We'll have a couple more videos for you here in a second.